My name is Ethan. I'm 42 years old, and I thought I understood what it meant to build a life with someone. My wife, Laura, and I had been together for almost 14 years. We built a home, a business, a future. At least, that's what I believed. But then there were signs, not obvious ones, not the kind you see in movies. No lipstick on collars or perfume on strange shirts. No hotel receipts or secretive calls at 2 a.m. It was much more subtle than that. Laura became polite. Not cold, not cruel, just courteous. The kind of politeness you offer a stranger on a flight. The small smiles, the quick nods, the "I'll be home late" text with no follow-up. It started with silence at the dinner table. No fights, just silence. And her eyes, those soft green eyes that used to search mine with warmth, had started looking past me. At first, I told myself it was work. Stress. Maybe a midlife fog we'd push through. But one night, after she went to bed early, I saw the way she locked her phone with a new code. I asked her about it casually the next morning, pretending to forget the old one. "It's for work," she replied, smiling like it was nothing. I nodded, but inside, something cold began to settle. "Work," she said. "Always work." That weekend, I stayed up late and started checking our share documents, business statements, joint accounts, the company's trust papers. Nothing seemed wrong, but something caught my attention. A small transaction from our joint checking to an account I didn't recognize. Not a large amount, just $500. But it was recurring, every month. When I asked her about it, she barely blinked. "Oh, that's for one of our vendors. I set up months ago. You just noticed now." She was smooth, effortless. The lie rolled off her tongue like she practiced it. That night, I lay awake next to her. My eyes were open, staring at the ceiling fan as it sliced the air. My wife was planning something. I wasn't sure what, but I knew I had to start preparing. I didn't say a word. I just got smarter. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I began making digital copies of all our important financial documents. Passwords, deeds, business registrations. I set up a private server, encrypted everything, and slowly started moving small assets into protected accounts with legal separation clauses. I didn't clean out anything major. That would have spooked her. But I separated business from marriage, something I should have done a long time ago. Then I hired someone, a forensic accountant, referred to me by an old friend who'd gone through a messy split of his own. I didn't tell the accountant the full story, just enough to get him looking into irregularities in our business and personal financial activities. He was discreet. The second week into his work, he called me. "There's something odd," he said. "She's been opening business accounts under a second LLC. The names are clean, but they route through the same networks. It looks like she's preparing for a split, possibly trying to shift assets before filing." I remember standing in my office, holding the phone to my ear, my heart thudding like a drum. The proof wasn't fully there yet, but it was enough. She was planning to leave me, and she wanted to do it quietly, on her terms, taking with her everything she could. But she underestimated something. I wasn't blind anymore. One night, I got home early from a meeting and heard her on the phone. She was in our bedroom with the door half closed. I stayed quiet, just listened. She laughed softly. "No, not yet. I needed to look clean. If he finds out too soon, he could lock things down." I froze. The words hit like ice water. A pause, then, "He's not stupid, but he trusts me too much. I'll make sure I have control before I file. My lawyer says it'll be clean." I backed away. My feet felt like lead as I moved downstairs, my mind racing. That night, I kissed her on the forehead before bed. She smiled at me like I was a guest in her hotel. And the next morning, I smiled back. The game had changed. If she wanted to play it this way, I could play too. But this time, I'd be the one writing the rules. I've always believed that the most dangerous kind of betrayal is the one that creeps in quietly. No explosions, no screaming matches, just the slow erosion of trust, like water dripping through stone. That week, I stopped trying to fix my marriage. Not because I didn't love Laura, but because I couldn't fix something I was no longer a part of. She had already made her choice. She was just biding her time, and now, so was I. I started waking up earlier than usual, before her alarm went off. I'd sit downstairs in the kitchen with my coffee, staring into the void, listening to the refrigerator hum. I'd watch her come down, say her usual morning with that smile that had stopped reaching her eyes, and then go about her day like we weren't unraveling at the seams. But I kept my mask on, too. I play my role. The clueless husband, the supportive partner, the business-savvy co-founder. And while she was pretending to love me, I was dismantling our financial foundation brick by brick. Quietly. Legally. Precisely. First, I transferred ownership of the company's core intellectual property to a holding firm registered under my name. I used clauses buried in the original partnership agreement, documents she hadn't read in years. My lawyer was good, very good. He told me exactly how to do it without triggering alarms. Then I redirected our most valuable contracts through that holding firm, ensuring that any post-divorce claim wouldn't include them. It wasn't about hurting her. It was about protecting myself from what was clearly coming. The accountant I'd hired sent me more troubling findings. She'd been quietly moving funds from the company's accounts into a new consulting venture under her maiden name. She was prepping an exit strategy, lining up legal support, financial independence, and client connections. It stung. Not because of the money, but because she'd started all this months ago. Before the distance. Before the silence. Back when I still thought we were fine. The mask she wore each morning. How long had she been wearing it? One night, I followed her. She told me she was going to networking dinner with local entrepreneurs. Said I didn't need to come. It'll be boring. I waited 15 minutes, then left in my car. I parked across the street from the restaurant she said she'd be at. She wasn't there. Instead, I watched from my car as she pulled into a parking lot 5 blocks away. A man was already there waiting. Tall, well-dressed, confident. I recognized him immediately. Ryan, a consultant we'd worked with years ago. I didn't like him then. Now I hated him. They didn't embrace, but they didn't need to. The familiarity between them was like static in the air. They sat in his car for almost an hour. No touching, just talking. That told me everything. This wasn't new. It was planned, coordinated, clean. It wasn't about love. It was about power, strategy, getting ahead. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't throw accusations or demand answers. I just logged everything. Photos, timestamps, a full report for the attorney I now had on retainer. She was planning her escape, and now I had the map. A week later, she brought up the idea of a business retreat. It's a Napa, she said. Just a small thing. Some leadership seminars. Sounds great, I said, pouring my coffee. You'll kill it. She smiled at me. That same night, I checked her email on the old laptop she thought I'd forgotten. She hadn't deleted her saved credentials. It wasn't a retreat. It was a private appointment with a divorce attorney in San Francisco. 2 days. Hotel already booked. Dinner reservation for one of her favorite restaurants. Not for us. For her and her freedom. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I called my attorney and said, I want to prepare my response. He asked me if I want to go on the offensive. File first. Beat her to the punch. But I said no. Let her play her hand. Let her think she's ahead. Because the moment she files, I'll already be where I need to be, fortified, protected, and one step ahead. What no one ever tells you about betrayal is that it's not the act that shatters you. It's the pretense that follows. The charade. The soft lies told with a smile. The birthday cake she baked just last week. The plan she made for our anniversary. The way she still texted me random pictures of her dog, while simultaneously preparing to gut everything we built together. And now I had to decide, do I let this play out and protect only myself? Or do I make her realize that I saw her, really saw her, the whole time? Either way, the countdown had started. The marriage was already over. But the reckoning? That was just beginning. 2 days before her business retreat, Laura left early in the morning, dressed in a crisp black suit and heels she hadn't worn in months. She kissed me on the cheek before walking out the door. That kiss burned, not because it meant anything, but because she knew exactly what she was doing. That one kiss was her attempt to seal the lie with tenderness. But I didn't flinch. I simply watched her drive away, then closed the door and headed to the safe in my office. Inside was a simple manila folder, everything I'd compiled in the past 2 months. Financial transfers, secret accounts, her meeting with Ryan. screenshots of her fake retreat confirmation and her real itinerary. Notes from the private investigator I'd quietly hired after that night in the parking lot. It was all there. She didn't know it, but the game she thought she was playing solo had a second player, one who was 10 moves ahead. Still, I wasn't going to strike yet. I wanted the truth first. The whole truth. I needed to understand why. How long? What she really wanted. I wasn't after revenge. I was after clarity. Closure. Something I could live with. I called in a favor and flew out to San Francisco under a different name. Booked a hotel down the street from hers. I watched her check in from a cafe across the street. She looked calm. Not excited. Not nervous. Just composed. The next morning, she walked into the building I knew housed her attorney. She stayed there for nearly 2 hours. When she came out, she wasn't alone. Ryan walked beside her. They didn't touch. They didn't smile. But their proximity was familiar. He said something that made her nod. She didn't look happy. She looked conflicted. That was the first time doubt crept into my chest. Was I missing something? Later that night, I caught them again, this time having dinner. I'd reserved the table 2 booths behind them, wearing a baseball cap and gray hoodie. They were deep in conversation. Laura was leaning forward, shaking her head. "No, it's not about the money," she said, her voice hushed but clear. "It's about him. I don't want to blindside Ethan, but I can't keep living like this." Ryan leaned back. "So, tell him the truth." She sighed, voice almost cracking. "I tried. 100 times. But he's so loyal. It would destroy him." Ryan paused. "Then maybe he deserves to know what really happened." Laura stared at her wine glass for a long time. She whispered, "He still doesn't know about the miscarriage. Or the letters." My heart thudded. Miscarriage? Letters? What the hell was she talking about? Ryan spoke again. "You never told him?" "No," she said softly. "He was working day and night. I didn't want to be another weight on his shoulders. I buried it. I buried all of it. I left before the check arrived." My head was spinning. For weeks I had been preparing for war, for betrayal, for a cold and calculated escape. But now I was hearing something I hadn't expected. Pain, not just mine, but hers. I went back to my hotel room and pored over everything I had. Had I missed something bigger? The next morning, I confronted the past. I found the storage unit we hadn't visited in years, where we kept old journals, photos, letters. I needed to know what letters she was talking about. And buried in one of the boxes marked wedding keepsakes, I found a bundle of envelopes. They were addressed to me. From Laura. Dated 6 years ago. Each one was sealed. None had been sent. My hand shook as I opened the first one. "Ethan, I wish I had the courage to say this out loud, but I can't find the words. I lost the baby today. I didn't even know I was pregnant until I wasn't anymore. I was scared to tell you. You've been so focused on the new branch office, on growing the business. I didn't want to distract you, but I cried for hours alone today. I don't know how to mourn something I never had. Love always. Laura." I read all of them. Pain, loneliness, resentment, love, regret. They weren't about leaving me. They were about not knowing how to reach me. While I'd been building a company, she'd been breaking on the inside, and I'd missed all of it. I sat there in the dust and silence of that storage unit for over an hour, stunned. This wasn't the story I thought I was in. It wasn't a clean-cut betrayal. It was a messy, gray heartbreak full of missed chances, misunderstood silences, and emotional distance. That night, I went home before her. I poured a drink and sat in the dark. When she walked in a few hours later, she froze. Her voice was careful. "You're home early." I didn't answer. I just said, "Tell me about the miscarriage." She stopped breathing, and in that pause, our whole world shifted. Laura stood frozen in the doorway, like time had stopped. The silence between us stretched so long, I could hear the refrigerator hum again, just like the first time I sensed something was wrong. But this time, it wasn't suspicion keeping me still. It was the weight of the question I had just asked. "Tell me about the miscarriage," I said again, my voice quieter this time. She took a step forward, then another, as if her feet didn't belong to her anymore. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table, eyes searching mine. She didn't ask how I knew. She just whispered, "You weren't supposed to find out." I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just waited. "I found out I was pregnant 6 years ago," she said slowly, voice cracking. "You were in Chicago. negotiating that partnership deal. I remember taking the test and just sitting there on the bathroom floor for over an hour, holding it, crying. But I didn't cry because I was scared. I cried because I was happy. She looked down at her hands, trembling in her lap. But the next week, it was gone. Just like that. A sharp pain, a trip to the ER, and a nurse with tired eyes telling me, "These things happen more often than people think." My stomach turned. "I wanted to tell you, Ethan. I really did," she said, blinking away tears. "But when you got home, you were so tired. So proud of closing that deal. I didn't want to be the reason your high crashed. So I wrote the letters. I poured it all into paper, hoping I'd one day have the strength to hand them to you. But I never did. Histoire de hair. Not with anger, but with something worse. Guilt. You should have told me," I said, voice hollow. "I know. You should have given me the chance to grieve with you, not bury it alone." She looked away. "And you should have noticed. I wasn't the same after that. I started pulling away, slowly. You thought it was stress. And I let you believe that because it was easier than the truth." We sat in silence for what felt like forever. There was no shouting, no acquiescence, just quiet devastation. Then I finally asked, "What about Ryan?" Her eyes flicked back to mine. She didn't lie. We reconnected last year. I wasn't looking for anything. It just happened. He was someone I talked to, someone who listened. But nothing physical ever happened. I swear to you. And the business accounts? The meetings? The retreat? She swallowed. The retreat was real, just not for the reasons I gave you. I was planning to file, yes. But I wasn't trying to take everything from you. I was just trying to make sure I'd land on my feet. I thought if I asked for a divorce now, it would seem like I was after money or control and not what I really wanted. I raised an eyebrow. "And what do you really want?" She hesitated, and then she broke. "I want peace," she said, her voice cracking. "I want to stop pretending. I want to stop waking up beside a man who loves me but doesn't see me anymore. And I want you to stop building things just to keep from feeling anything." I wanted to scream, but she wasn't wrong. I had built everything, except a space for her to fall into when she was in pain. I leaned back in the chair, eyes stinging. "Why didn't we talk?" I asked. "Why did it have to get this far?" She whispered, "Because we forgot how." That night, she slept in the guest room. I lay in our bed alone, staring at the ceiling fan again. But this time, I wasn't thinking about betrayal or secrets or court documents. I was thinking about how two people who loved each other could become strangers in the same house. I woke up the next morning before the sun rose and went for a drive. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to move. My phone rang around 8 a.m. It was my attorney. "She hasn't filed anything," he said. "Nothing's in the system. No formal motions, no legal action. Just some preliminary consults." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Thanks." After I hung up, I sat in a parking lot for over an hour, thinking about us, about everything we'd hidden from each other, about how both of us had prepared for war when what we really needed was truth. When I got home, she was sitting at the kitchen table again, staring out the window. "I'm not filing," she said softly, without turning around. "I know." She turned. "How?" "I had you followed," I admitted. "I had your accounts checked. I heard everything. The lawyer, Ryan, your dinner." Her face didn't register anger, just exhaustion. "You had every reason to." I walked toward her, but I also found the letters. That stopped her. I placed them on the table between us, gently, like they were fragile. I read every word. Her eyes filled with tears. "And now?" she asked. "What do we do now?" That was the question, wasn't it? We'd both gone to war for a marriage that no longer looked like one. We both thought we were being deceived, abandoned. But really, we were just wounded people trying to survive without causing more damage. And in the process, we almost destroyed the last thing we had left. Us. We didn't talk much over the next few days. It wasn't the cold kind of silence we'd lived in for the past year. This was something different, like standing in the aftermath of a fire, sifting through what could still be saved. I canceled a few meetings. So did she. We moved around the house like strangers who used to be something more. Every now and then, we'd share a look. Not accusatory, just cautious. Like we were trying to figure out how to speak a language we used to know fluently. One morning, I found her in the backyard, barefoot in the grass, staring at the broken swing we never got around to fixing. "You okay?" I asked, stepping closer. She nodded, then shook her head. "I don't know anymore." And then, out of nowhere, she turned to me and said, "I need to tell you something else." I braced myself. She motioned for me to sit. I did. I said nothing happened with Ryan. But that's only part of the truth. I didn't move, didn't flinch, just waited. She took a deep breath. "A few months ago, I told him I thought I still loved you. That even after everything, even after the years of us drifting, I couldn't hate you. And I couldn't lie to myself anymore, either." I swallowed hard. "He kissed me," she said. "I let him. Once. It didn't go further. But I didn't stop it when I should have. And afterward, I told him I couldn't do it. That I didn't want to become someone else to escape my life. I wanted to face it. I didn't say anything right away. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because, somehow, this hurt less than I expected. I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in months, I saw not the woman who had betrayed me, or the wife who was planning to leave, but the woman I'd failed in silence. The woman who was scared and flawed and human, just like me. "It's not okay," I said, my voice low. "But thank you for telling me. I just wanted you to know before we try to fix anything. If we're going to rebuild, it has to be on ground that isn't full of cracks." I nodded. "I made mistakes too," I admitted. "I didn't cheat, but I disappeared in other ways. I made our life about survival and control. I buried myself in work and thought loyalty was enough. I forgot how to love you out loud." She blinked, surprised. "I've been protecting myself so hard." I added, "I forgot how to let you in." That night, we sat down and talked for hours. About the miscarriage, the letters, our business, our fears. We didn't promise to erase the past. We promised only one thing, that whatever came next would be honest. 2 weeks later, we had a small dinner with both our lawyers together. Not for a divorce, but to redraw our partnership in the business and protect each other legally moving forward. We didn't want weapons anymore. We wanted guardrails. After that meeting, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. But just when I thought the worst was behind us, the final twist came like a slap from fate itself. We received a letter from the IRS. A formal audit notice. Apparently, someone, an anonymous third party, had reported suspicious financial activity in our business accounts, referencing the same accounts Laura had opened last year. I remember the cold crawling up my spine as I read it. "This wasn't me," I said immediately, sliding the letter to her. Her face turned pale. "I don't understand. I closed those accounts months ago. There's nothing illegal there." I believed her, but believing her didn't stop the wheels already in motion. We brought in our accountant and attorney again. They reviewed the documents, the transfers, the LLCs, and that's when it happened. "I think I know who did this," Laura said one evening, staring at her phone. "Who?" She turned the screen toward me. "Ryan. He threatened me," she said quietly, "after I ended things. Told me he could make things messy if I ghosted him. I thought it was just bitterness." I clenched my fists. Everything we'd rebuilt, suddenly under threat again, from someone we thought was out of the picture. The next week became a whirlwind of document gathering, damage control, and late-night phone calls with legal teams. We were side by side the whole time, two people who once stood on opposite sides of the battlefield, now defending the same line. And through it all, something incredible happened. We started laughing again. In the middle of the chaos, we found moments, fleeting but real, where the old us peeked through. The teasing, the eye rolls, the little touches, the way she squeezed my hand during one of the worst meetings of my life. It was real. It was fragile, but it was real. On the day we submitted our final audit paperwork, we sat in the parking lot afterward, neither of us speaking. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry for everything." I looked at her. "So am I." Then she added, "If we survive this, I want us to really live again. Not just exist. Not just hold on." I nodded. "Then let's start over." 2 months passed. 2 long, grueling, soul-exposing months. The audit consumed every spare second. The investigators combed through our accounts like vultures, asking questions that felt like accusations. But we faced it together. For the first time in a long time, Laura and I were a team. Some nights we still slept in separate rooms. Not out of anger, but because healing sometimes takes silence, stillness, space. Other nights, we found ourselves sitting together on the back porch, sharing quiet words, remembering why we ever said I do. We made a mess of things, both of us, but we were trying. And something about that effort, mutual, raw, exhausting, felt holy. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, I got the call. The audit's closed, my attorney said. They found some irregularities, but nothing illegal. You're in the clear. There'll be a follow-up advisory report, but no fines. No charges. I stared at the wall for a long time after that. It was over. The storm we'd both feared, first from each other, then from outside, had passed. That night, I cooked her dinner. Nothing fancy, just grilled chicken, vegetables, and garlic bread the way she liked it. Soft in the middle, crispy at the edges. I opened a bottle of wine we'd been saving. We sat down like it was just any other night, but everything had changed. We'd come out the other side, not unscathed, but alive. After we ate, I pulled out a document from the drawer. She looked at it, puzzled. What's this? An offer, I said. For full joint ownership of the holding firm I moved our assets into. No tricks, no fine print, just equal footing. Not as husband and wife, but as partners. Her eyes filled with tears. You don't have to do that. I know, I said. But I want... She reached out, touched the edge of the folder. You really trust me again? I don't think it's about trust, I said. I think it's about choosing to rebuild. Even if the ground isn't perfect. Even if the foundation is cracked. We can still lay bricks together. She signed without hesitation. No prenup. No threats. No legal escape routes. Just ink, paper, and the shaking hands of two people trying to start again. In the months that followed, we began reintroducing ourselves to each other. We went to therapy, individually, then together. We took walks without talking about work. We visited her mother in Maine and spent a weekend playing board games with her nieces. We even went back to that swing in the backyard and fixed it. She sat on it and smiled. I forgot what this felt like. I pushed her gently and said, I think I'm remembering. Then came the moment I'll never forget. She surprised me with a small envelope one morning. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. Ethan, I wrote a lot of letters you never saw. But this one, I want you to read. Thank you for seeing me again. For not throwing me away. For being angry, but not cruel. For giving me the chance to be more than my worst mistake. We lost so much time. But I believe we still have more ahead than behind. And if we fall again, we fall together. Love, Laura. I didn't cry when I read it. I cried later, alone in the car, when the weight of everything finally broke through the walls I'd built inside. Redemption isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with confetti or applause. Sometimes it's just two people choosing each other again. Not because they forgot the pain, but because they survived it. Today, our business is smaller, quieter, but we run it together. Our marriage is the same. Not perfect, not painless, but real. Sometimes when I look at her across the kitchen, I think about that moment when I first suspected she was planning a divorce. I'm glad I moved my assets, but I'm even more grateful I moved my heart back into the space we once abandoned. Because sometimes the most shocking redemption is learning to love again. Even after everything, especially after everything.